he said, I really like you and I like this idea and I think you have something here, but I hate this brand and your packaging is awful.
What happens when tradition, innovation, and the power of sisterhood come together to build something bigger than one generation? Today's guest, Meryl Kennedy, is a force in the world of agriculture, entrepreneurship, and leadership. As the founder and CEO of Four Sisters Rice, Meryl has taken her family's deep-rooted legacy in rice farming and transformed it into a nationally recognized brand, built on sustainability, innovation, and the strength of sisterhood. Her journey started with the unexpected return home, swapping plans for international diplomacy for a leadership role in her family's agribusiness. She didn't just step into the family business, she redefined it. From launching a cutting-edge rice mill at just 21 to leading sustainability efforts that caught the attention of major brands like Kellogg's and Walmart, Merryill is proving that women in agriculture are a force to be reckoned with. In this conversation, we dive into overcoming imposter syndrome in male-dominated industries, building a brand with purpose, and balancing entrepreneurship with family life. I cannot wait for you to hear her wisdom, her passion, and the inspiring story behind Four Sisters Rice. I'm Lorette Rondonay. Let's get started.
As you know, I grew up on a rice farm. And that experience really has led me to where I am today. But if you would tell my 16-year-old self that I would be living back on that rice farm right now, I think that I'd have to laugh at you because I had no intention of coming back to the farm when I went off to college. And it really was a deal that I made with my father on the night of my graduation. I graduated from University of Georgia, and he tells me, he said, Meryl, I've decided I'll pay for your college, go get your master's over there in Europe or wherever you want to go. But you're going to have to work for me for a summer. And I thought that this was the best deal of my life. I really couldn't figure out how I was going to pay to get my master's anyways, but I was determined to go. And so I said, oh, well, this is great because I'm going to move back home. I'm going to hate it. And then in 2 or 3 months, I can go study. So,
And you were going to go to study abroad, right?
I was going to go to Oxford. So,
Which is really cool. And your dad was like, where?
He actually, when he found out that I got in, he didn't speak to me for about 3 months.
What? Oh, that's painful.
It was painful because, as every child wants their parents to be proud of them, right?
Yes.
But you have to know that my father really doesn't value education in the same way we do because, he barely graduated from high school. He's first generation. And, he believes in the power of hard work more than education.
Yes.
I don't think that he's opposed to education. He just felt like, I'd had enough partying and living the good life at Georgia, and I needed to come home and get serious.
And probably the value of it, to him, it's like, this is expensive, and what are you going to get in return?
Exactly. And, it really wasn't until his mentor set me down and said, okay, what are you going to school for? Is this really what you want to, spend your life doing? And that really made me think because after spending 2 or 3 months with my father, I realized that I loved business and I loved agriculture. And I wasn't sure necessarily if I wanted to stay here the rest of my life, but I definitely was sure that I didn't want to do what I was about to go to school for.
Which was what?
International affairs. So I was going to do like Latin America and relations. So it was not the path that I wanted. And, it really took someone kind of sitting me down and asking that exact same question.
A good coach.
Very good coach. But now I find myself living back in this little small town called Merryill in Northeast Louisiana, raising my family there with my husband. And it's a beautiful place. I call it Mayberry all the time. I mean, it really is, kids riding their bicycles. And we have a farm supply store that people have lunch at. And it's Mayberry.
I can't wait to see it.
I'd love for you to come. You're invited anytime.
Talk more about the journey then once you decided to partner with your dad. So then some of the trials and tribulations of how did that go?
I worked as my father's assistant for several years, right? And I was really felt like I was the coffee girl. Meryl, where's my coffee? This you could hear him screaming like, through the office. And I made the mistake of living with my parents when I first came back, and he would wake me up at 3 a.m. to type his emails. I swear.
3
I mean,
a.m.
especially the nights I would try to go out. I was definitely getting up at 3 a.m. This is Meryl at 21, though. So those lessons, though, provided, invaluable kind of work ethic and motivation. And because I was, his assistant, he introduced me to, all the people that he had been working with for many years. And really, I was able to gain a pretty deep, relationship with those people.
And pretty male dominated, I imagine.
Very male dominated, right? And so he's always been very good about bringing me into male dominated situations. Even when I think back on my whole life, there's 4 of us, there's 4 daughters. And so by the time he got to me, because I'm the last one, it was a little bit like, well, this is all I've got. I got drug around to duck hunting camps and all different types of experiences that really were only boys clubs. And you don't really tell Elton Kennedy that the girl can't come. So, he brought me anyways. But I was so blessed to be able to have those experiences with him when I was a young professional. And it just made me realize that, look, this is really where I want to be. And the company that he had built, we have some phenomenal people. And what can I do to maintain that legacy and then grow that legacy, right?
Right.
So those are, that really, by the time I was in my mid-20s, it was pretty clear to me that I wanted to continue that and build on that. And really, when we started our own rice mill, when we built the mill together, was really the first start of that working partnership that you're talking about. But that just expanded as the years went on.
I was going to ask you that exact question, is like, when did the true partnership happen? And why was that moment? Because I have one of those with my dad too, where I know in the moment that it happened. So why was that moment the moment for you guys? If you're enjoying this conversation, drop a like, comment, and subscribe. Feedback is so important, and it helps us get more exposure.
We had built the mill several years before, so we actually opened in 2012. And so, through that, I was absolutely instrumental in getting that started. I think I was 21 when we opened the doors. So, it was a huge accomplishment. But, he was also right there kind of beside me. And so for the next 4 to 5 years, as we grew that business, I think it became clear to him that I was here to stay, right? That I was committed, that, I was going to put in the effort, that I wasn't going to, run away to Europe, or as he called it, marry a Frenchman. There's nothing wrong with that. But in his mind, that would take me away from him, right? So I think that he realized at that point that I was aware. And so he pulled the whole office into this group meeting, which he's not really a group meeting guy. In fact, he hates group meetings. He's like, oh, Meryl's having another team meeting, But he pulled us all in, and he was like, it was a very ad hoc meeting. He was like, so just want to let everybody know, Meryl's going to be running this place. And everybody kind of was like, okay.
Do you know how lucky you are, though, that your dad did that? My dad kind of avoided that. Not with employees so much. He avoided it with my siblings. And I really underestimated how much that would have helped.
I wouldn't say that he has been that forthcoming with my sisters either.
Easier to talk to our employees than
It is easier to talk to employees and family sometimes. And so it really, my family didn't realize the full extent of it until later either.
Interesting. Oh, we got to dive into that a little bit. I think we got to describe what the business does and who you sell to, and, a little bit more about the heart of the business.
So the heart of the business, when we started Kennedy Rice Mill, and remember, my father started as a farmer, right? So agriculture is very deep in our roots, and we still farm ourselves, but we also rent land and manage properties. So we take rice from the field to a finished product now. And when we opened Kennedy Rice Mill, it became pretty clear that we have this niche in the market that we can support large CPG companies, which is, a lot of people would say, oh, well, you're a commodity, of course. Like, why can't other people do this? They can. It's just that we have such a deep-rooted sense of ag, we can actually select certain varieties that we feel like not only grow well for our farmers, but then also, um, mill better and then actually work better in their processes. So if you need to make a rice flour or I see you have our
A
Rice
Rice
Krispies.
Krispie
You need to
treat.
make your Rice Krispie treats or possibly other cereals or even rice noodles. A lot of people don't think about when they go to an Asian restaurant and they order rice noodles that actually is rice.
That's
So
true
it's
because it
rice
doesn't
extruded.
look like rice.
That's right, it doesn't look like rice. So that's really where we started, is that we started doing business with a lot of these large companies that needed to have tighter spec parameters, and they really needed to form partnerships, in my opinion. And so we've been so blessed that we've been able to form these partnerships. And yes, we have to be competitive. We're in the commodity industry, right?
Yes.
But we're also able to find niche places to where we can, form long-lasting partnerships, as I
And
call
add
them, and
value.
add value to them.
I would imagine service is a big part of that adding value.
Oh, it's a huge part of it, right? And communication, so important. So a lot of these large CPG companies wanted to come to the farm and start talking about women in agriculture, right?
Huge. We were talking
Huge.
about that last night, that is a gaping hole. There's not very
There's
many
just not
women.
very many. And so when they see my family, like, oh wow, this is a story they really want to tell, and they know that their audience also wants to see it.
Yes, the consumers care now.
The consumers do care, and I think that was kind of some of the original initiation of people wanting to come to the farm, telling that story, and then as more and more consumers were focused on sustainability or regenerative agriculture, we became part of that narrative too.
And you were doing that
We
anyway.
were doing it anyways, right? And so it became kind of something that I said, wow, like all these people are telling our story from their narrative, but we're not telling our story from our narrative, right? So we were not authentically telling that story in a way, right?
Right. And even knowing the power of your brand, it seems like you're like, wow, I got a brand here.
Yeah. And so we decided that, okay, we really feel like we want to tell this story from our voice, from our point of view. And we felt like consumers wanted to hear that. And then we might spice up the rice out just a little bit. But we also wanted to bring rice to market that we felt like was better than what was already there, right? Either grown in a different way, maybe it's an organic or natural product, but also just rice that tastes better, right? There are varieties out there.
And the packaging is adorable. I'm just looking at it.
Well, thank you.
It's so cute. I mean, that would definitely grab my eye in an aisle if I ever grocery shopped, which I don't really do very much anymore.
Well, none of us do anymore, right? And then that's a whole nother topic on how to bring customers in when you have a brand, especially a startup brand. So here I am with this large company with kind of like a little startup in the middle of it, right? But it's been super fun to work on. It's also provided value to my family for them to be involved as well. And my sisters has provided, extreme value to the brand.
Do they enjoy being like in the photo shoots and the
I think that they do. I think that they do. But they also, it's a way for them to provide value back to the company, right? And so this company that we're also proud of that our father created, and they are able to, have a piece of that. And so super proud to work with them on the brand and be able to tell a story of a different American agriculture.
I saw some of your videos. I think of some of your farmers, and I think one of your sisters was on one of the videos. It was really cute.
Probably. My sister Chantel, her and her husband ran our farms for many years. Yeah. So, and she was really pivotal in some of the sustainability things that we worked on for many years. So that again, farming and ag kind of run deep, not only with our father, but also with with our extended family, as we call it. And yeah.
So I think I love and we were trying to get this, but the fact that Walmart on the Rice Krispie treats puts a picture of you guys. I think it's all of you on the back, the four sisters on the back.
Kellogg's was just has just been an incredible partner. I'm not going to lie. They've just really have been very supportive,
Big into supporting women.
big into supporting women, but also lifting, not just supporting them, but really lifting them up, right?
Yes.
And then we've also supported them with a lot of the regenerative ag type programs that we've done. So we've done a lot of work on sustainability with them on methane gas reductions across rice land. And so,
So you've taught other rice farmers how to do
yes,
it better? Oh,
yes,
that's
yeah.
beautiful.
And so we've been able to expand. They have a program called Ingrained. And so, and that's actually carried over. Many of the audience will probably know that Kellogg's, has split to two different companies, right? And so that's carried over into Kellanova. And so Kellanova is still really involved with this initiative called Ingrained. And so trying to reduce methane gas emissions on farms. And then truly we were almost like the pioneer of this work with them. And they wanted to promote that on the back of their package. They launched this incredible product. If you haven't had it, it's a home style Rice Krispie treat. It's a little bit gooier and it's very addictive. I actually even didn't know this, but Rice Krispie treats might be the number one snack food at Walmart. I mean, they're massive as far as just the snacking aisle. And so they put us on the back of their home style treat box that sold at Walmart.
So I think that's cool because it's Kellogg and Walmart together in a way on
It
this
is.
right?
It
Yeah.
is.
Of them knowing their consumers so well that this is gonna help sell more Rice Krispie treats. It's that Intel Inside concept, in which it's probably totally outdated saying, but I don't even know. But knowing it was brilliant marketing when they did that. It's like no one knows that's inside of a computer. And I've always felt like that with the industry we're both in, but being a flavor company, our stuff's really secret. So, which is fun. I kind of like that about it. It's like Coke and Pepsi. The guy that carries like the Pepsi formula is like a bodyguard. I mean,
Yeah,
it is
I
the
mean, you
big
have to. I
stuff.
mean,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But I think there is value to even alluding to a woman-owned anything, ingredient, packaging, what have you, on the package of consumer packaged goods. I think I was just so excited to hear that they were doing that. I thought brilliantly smart. So hopefully more people will do that.
It's been truly an honor. In fact, when they first told me they were going to do it, I was like, okay,
I would have been dancing. Were you not?
well,
I would have
I
been
was
so.
definitely dancing, but I have to say, I was like, I didn't win the Olympics, right? All I think about when I think of cereal boxes is the Olympians that I grew up with as children, on the front of cereal boxes.
What did your dad say?
My dad is the most humble man you've ever met. And, his humility is actually probably one of his best values. And so he never has, we've had so much publicity. We were in Southern Living. We've been in many publications. He's always wanted to be behind and he's always wanted to push us forward.
So tell me about your mom. I think she sounds like an interesting woman too. So
My mom is is truly the life of the party.
yeah.
Every dinner I remember going to as a child, everyone wants to sit by Ann Kennedy. Okay. She always brings the fun. She's always got a smile on her face. And she's such a genuine woman just in general. So yeah,
She kind of put you out there like not the opposite of a helicopter mom is what I want to say.
my mother was extremely hard on me. She really never she wasn't hard on me in the way that you think of mothers being hard on you. Oh, get all A's, do all this. It was more like you're going to have to take care of yourself. So she never packed my lunch. She never did some of the things that even I find myself doing now, like making sure that your dance bag is packed and, oh, have you gotten, all these things? Have you brushed your teeth?
I was looking for my kid who's here because I'm like, I never have done any of that.
You've never done any of that, right? So
I might have started, but by the time I got to the 5th, I was like, yeah, you're on your own.
But I think some of those things are important, right? Because you learn, by the time I was in 7th grade, I was setting my own alarm. I was getting up on my own. I was making sure that I was prepared for the
Do you know how
day.
important that is, though? I think that's fantastic parenting.
I think it is too. It's a non-traditional in a way for what we consider our society to look
But
like,
I
right?
think we got to get back to that. I heard crazy stories of parents, especially after or during COVID, I don't know, but parents being on interviews with their kids. I'm like, are you kidding me?
My mother never would have, sorry. Maybe we should start.
No mother ever should be on an interview with their child.
I don't think I would have gone to college if I would have expected my parents to fill out my college applications. Like my mother that just wasn't part of her love language, right?
But she might have been more strategic than you think, thinking it's best if I don't. Because look at you now. Look at you,
I think so. And even today, sometimes I'll call her and be like, look, like, I really like want to go to the movie tonight. And she'll be like, well, I think you might need to spend tonight at home. You've been gone for 4 or 5 days, but you can call me in a week and I might help you.
I might babysit.
I might be able to babysit, right?
My mom didn't babysit ever. So she had 7 kids and she was like, yeah, I'm done. She was never loved the babies. Absolutely was the best holder of babies and amazing swaddler of babies, but she didn't want to be left alone with them.
Well, how many grandchildren did she have? Because you come from a huge family. So
I'm the youngest of 7. So thinking of the different parenting that all of us got. And by the time I was in 3rd grade, my mom went back to school, which was trailblazing. No moms were doing that in like 1976. Like that just wasn't happening. All my girlfriends' moms were making their lunches exactly like you're talking about. And they had really good lunches. My lunches, I had to make my own. They were horrible. And my mom was like way ahead of the times in food, like sugar. She was anti-sugar way before that was a thing. We had grape nuts as cereal. We didn't get the sugary cereal, but I think she was right. Yeah. But I was ironing my own uniform in 3rd grade. And I believe, looking back, I got to tell you, I was not happy about it in 3rd grade. But looking back on it now, I feel like it definitely shaped who I am. And I definitely do that with my kids, though maybe not as intentionally as she did. But yeah, I'm like, sorry, you guys, we're busy women and I'm there for the important stuff for sure. I hope they'll all be in therapy though. So I hope they all get in therapy someday.
We all need a little therapy.
We all need a little therapy. But I think it makes stronger humans. So.
Well, these are the things in life that it's the small things that end up really mattering, right? Showing up on time, being prepared. And so if you neglect the small things, then it's, and so I value a lot that my mom taught me early on. At the time, I agree with you. I don't know that I realized how much she was teaching me, and maybe I had a little resentment towards that. But now as I look back, I say, wow, I really appreciate it.
So kind of on that note and thinking either business, personal, or both, because our lives blend together in the roles that we have. But what advice would you give in terms of things that you should delegate? I got a few for you that I think you need to delegate. But back to like what's most important. What can you delegate in order to elevate is the way we say it in traction words, but things that when you become a leader that you really will help you shine,
Ooh, Lorette, my 15-month-old daughter is teaching me this lesson. So in life, I feel like people come along and they help you along the journey, right? And as much as my father has taught me, he was always, because he's first generation, he was always, of the opinion, you got to do it yourself. No one can do it better than you. And so by the time I kind of woke up and realized this, it's frankly, that's why I say I give credit to my daughter, Birdie Rose, because I wasn't able.
Wait, you gotta say her name again. Birdie?
Birdie Rose. Birdie Rose,
oh
yes.
God, I love that name.
When you have a surprise child, you can name them whatever you want, right?
Exactly.
So I got to pick. So Birdie Rose it is.
That's
very
adorable.
Southern, right?
Oh, I got to see a picture of her.
She is adorable. She looks just like my mother. She really does. She's like literally spitting image of my mother. But I had gotten to a place where, I was kind of running on all cylinders, but didn't realize it. And people would tell me, oh, you need to slow down, or, are you sure you need to, but I'll be like, oh, I what do you mean? Like, I got this, it's fine. And when I got pregnant with her, it was pretty clear that I wasn't going to be able to do everything that I was doing. It also, was coming off of COVID, frankly. And as we were talking about earlier, during COVID, I was able to do a lot more because nothing was in person, right? And so for the first time, especially living in a very rural area, it opened so many things for me because now, technology had allowed me to be anywhere in the globe overnight, and things that would take me sometimes a week to do were now taking me 30 minutes. So I was able to, in a way, cram a lot of things into my life. And it kept me busy, my mind focused during a time that was pretty challenging for us in the food industry. It was just insane, right? Insane. And then we came off of that. And then when I got pregnant, the world was changing again, right? Now we were having some things in person, some things virtually. I needed to be back on the road. How was I going to be back on the road? This is not going to work. I was chairing several boards that was like, oh, I'm going to give birth this week. I'm not going to be able to be there, right?
I might need a backup.
I might need a backup. And so I am definitely not there yet. But I started looking at how many days per month that was going to take me. And then I started calculating like, okay, this is how many days in the year there are. And is this worth that many days, right? And just simple things like that.
I mean, that sounds simple, Meryl, but it's huge. And especially for visual people, which I am totally visual, I need to see in an old-fashioned calendar sometimes. Like my phone, I can see stuff, but when I see it laid out, it's different. And I'm like, that's not going to work. I can't be out of town 3 weeks in a row or whatever. So I think that's really wise advice. Take the time to do that.
Time is the most valuable thing we have, right?
It is. And energy, which kind of goes together, I guess.
They do go together. And before you know it, you can blame other people for robbing your time, but it's your own fault at the end of the day.
It kind of goes to, though, that we had a quick conversation before getting on about an assistant. And it ties together with that. Having an assistant that is in lockstep with you is hugely important. And Gail totally gets me, and I have that. But there's been moments where we've tried to take a lot off of Gail's plate and get another person to help. And honestly, the biggest stress was I'm like, they don't get the calendar. It's like stressing me out now. And we had to make moves on that. But as soon as she gets it back, I'm like, like the moments to breathe in between.
I need some tips. I told you this. I need some tips because I have definitely not been successful. And many people around me, as I've been on this journey to offload some responsibilities, hire some people to help me. Again, I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it. One of the things that has repeatedly come up from my staff is you need an assistant.
Yeah. It's going to be game-changing for you. The right person.
The right person, though, right? And so, it's just not as common. And then, of course, you think, oh, well, maybe AI is going to be able to do it. And you get some new fancy app and it helps you for a second. And then you're like,
no.
Nothing beats a real person, right? Nothing
you need someone
beats
shoulder to shoulder with you, and walking next to you and getting it, getting the whole, what your priorities should be. It's going to be like,
I think that sometimes other people can do that kind of work better than we can too, right?
Hell yeah. Yes.
And it does matter.
Your role, I would imagine, is visionary. That's your best place, being out there, being the face of the brand, connecting with customers.
And that's what I enjoy, right?
Me too.
And so normally you are best at what you enjoy. And so some of the things that, I don't necessarily draining, it's other people's skill.
Exactly. That's the whole concept of delegate to elevate. And you do this like 4-quadrant thing, and you put like what you love and what you're really good at and the high one. And then there's things that you don't necessarily love, but you're good. It's like, I can do that. And it doesn't drain my energy to the bottom. And then you go down to like what I hate. And that's the stuff you got to get rid of. I believe. I think it'll make you, you better and your business better.
And people around you better, because it's not that it's not important. Just because I hate it doesn't mean that it's not important, right? It just means that it's just not my skill set, And so then I'm having to work double time to try to learn. And then, so yes, 100%. Delegate to elevate. I need to get a sign and post it in my office, like delegate to elevate. I love
And I
that.
think you being who you are, a woman in agriculture too, that there's so many boards that want your time and want your diversity on their board. And so you got to protect that too, I would say. And, definitely do the ones that your passion, feed your soul. But yeah, there's some piranhas out there that just, yeah. So Meryl, tell me more about while you were working with your father and you discovered that you had a brand in the Four Sisters, how that all transpired.
Laurette, I told you that we had a lot of CPG companies coming to the farm wanting to tell our story, right? So we were doing this quite often where we were entertaining and doing photo shoots, and we even had influencers. I mean, it was a ton of fun, especially for a company who never even had any marketing before. I mean, we had no marketing budget, nothing, right? And so we were all sitting around the dinner table one night, and my father had always really wanted to have a brand. He had sat on the board of Riviana Foods for like 30 years, right? Which they own Mahatma's, Cesspool in the Bag. And so his mentor was a man named Frank Gottschall who owned that company before he sold it. So, rice, from a consumer perspective to him was very important because of his time spent there. And for several years, he had kind of felt like, really like their rice industry can do more to its consumer. It can give the consumer more. We can, as a U.S. industry, do more. We were seeing a lot of imported rice come in and still are, right? So, and that was very frustrating to a man that, is a farmer at heart, and really frustrating to us as a family too, because we knew that, we had products that, really the story needed to be told, right? So we actually started a brand though called Kinshaw first. Many people don't know this. So we named it that because of Kennedy and then his partner, Mr. Gottschall, right? It was their two names combined. Now, ironically, Mr. Gottschall is no longer with us anymore, but he called me up and he said, Meryl, I don't like that name. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Mr. Frank, you don't like that name. Like, it's supposed to be an honor. I mean, I was super blessed that him and my father were mentors to me, right? So I had these giants mentor me. And so what he was saying really, I kind of almost took like, oh, he's just, he's too humble. He doesn't want me to use his name. He's too humble. But I trekked on. That's like it was in 2016, and it was a total failure. I mean, when I tell you it was a total failure, I think we were in like 3 or 4 stores by 2019. And at the beginning of 2019, my goal for that year was to determine what to do with this brand. Either I was going to kill it or, it was going to work out. So it was November. I'll never forget it because it was right around like the holiday season. It was after Thanksgiving. So it must have been like those last few days of November, right? And this was the 3rd meeting we had with Walmart. And so if any of you, and I'm sure many of the listeners have been to a Walmart sales meeting, the offices are super tiny, super intimidating, right? You have this and the buyer was listening, I was giving him the pitch and he says, you can stop. And I was like, oh, okay. Well,
What did I do wrong?
What did I do wrong? So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to get my briefcase. I'm going to walk out of here and hey, you know what? At least I got my answer. Right.
Gave it a good try.
I mean, I gave it a triumphant try. And he said, I really like you and I like this idea and and I think you have something here, but I hate this brand. And your packaging is awful. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I had been asking retailers that I met with, like, what can I do better? Nobody was telling me the truth.
Interesting.
Everybody was like, oh, talk to this person, but nobody was really saying like, actually, it's really ugly. Like, that's terrible. He's like, you can do so much better than this. So if
That's
you
a good coach.
Yeah. So if you come back to me, and remember, this is like a 15-minute meeting because at Walmart, you got a timer on you, right? So he said, if you can come back to me by mid-December, then I'll put you on with something that I can put on shelf, then I'll put you on shelf in March. And so what took me years to create, and it took me about 5 seconds in the Bentonville parking lot to rip to shreds. And I called a friend of mine who is in the marketing business, who had been telling me for a while, like, you really are not telling your story authentically. You are telling your story through the eyes of your father and his mentor, but you're not owning your own legacy, right? It goes back to the name of this podcast,
you're
right?
going there,
You're
girlfriend.
not owning it.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, yeah, I am. And they're like, no, you're not.
Isn't it annoying when people say that to you?
It really is annoying.
It's really annoying.
It really is annoying. So I followed his lead, and we named the business Four Sisters. And we just happened to launch into Walmart in March of 2020, which was in the middle of the pandemic, the week of the pandemic, right? And so, and the same almost exact timing happened for Kroger as well. And so, the people at Kroger were super supportive of us. I mean, I don't talk enough about how much of an awesome partner Kroger has been to us and to the brand. But we launched in both of those massive retailers in the middle of the pandemic. And then all of a sudden, I went from the girl that doesn't know anything about retail, because I didn't, right? So, I mean, now looking back, I can understand why all these buyers would have so much hesitation. I knew nothing about retail, but I'm like, well, I know about rice. But I went from the girl that knew nothing about retail to the girl who has rice, right?
So what was the biggest challenges of retail for you?
I think it was good that I was young and naive. I'm going to be honest with you, because we did not know anything about retail.
And you might have been afraid of it.
I probably would have been very afraid of it if I would have really understood all the nuances. And then COVID helped us not only with distribution, but it gained that respect from retailers. Okay, she really does have supply. This is not a startup that, doesn't have the means to be able to supply us in a large way. And so really, and it also maybe covered up some of the things that we didn't really know what we were doing, like marketing, right? People bought our products off the shelf because they were just on the shelf and they needed rice for their pantry. And then we were in their pantries at that point, and they tasted our product and they loved it and they rebought.
And probably read the story, got into the story.
Exactly. And so it allowed us a little bit of grace, I call it, to catch up to where we were. And even now, we call ourselves a bit of like that middle schooler kind of awkward age, where we are in, I think it's like 7,000 or 8,000 stores now nationwide. But we're still learning, right? We're still on this journey. We're still very new. I mean, it's 2024 and we've not been at retail very long. So some of the lessons have come hard and fast, but it's been an awesome journey to be on.
Do you separate the business between retail and being an ingredient supplier?
So Four Sisters is like a little startup in the middle of our ingredient business, or our, rice business. But no, the businesses are the same. So we don't separate them. We do have different initiatives that we work on, but even when I have tried to separate them, the customer really wants to understand the whole depth of the organization, right? They want to understand our farming practices. They want to understand that what we're doing on the farm really affects the products that they feed their family, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want to understand how we process the product. We get questions all the time like, is rice bleached? No, rice is not bleached, right? But people really care about these things, and they care about the food that they put in their body. And so it's really that supply chain, that depth of knowledge that I think gives us a bit difference. And then the family aspect too.
Absolutely.
I mean, our mission is to connect families, right? So over good food at the table. I mean, that's one little grain at a time.
One little grain at a time. That's adorable.
Yeah, we're really, really dedicated to that mission of, we feel like we can change the world for better, but it's really over that connection that we all want.
So how do you build that connection in your culture within your business? And do you and your dad have different roles? Let's kind of talk a little bit about combining your staff and your employees.
So culture is probably one of the things I'm the most proud of. When I think back about our accomplishments and everything that we've done, When I see an employee that's been with us for an extended period of time and has moved up in their role and is thriving and is happy, that sense of pride is hard to it's pretty difficult to replace with any award or any, and so when you can create a culture where people want to come to work every day, right? And that difference between, what it's just a job and it's you really feel like you're doing more than that, right? That to me is something that is extremely unique in business. And I wouldn't say that we're perfect. I mean, culture is a journey. I would say that some days are better, right? Some days you kind of go the opposite way, but the reality is that you can you can create that in a business, and our employees, we say they're an extension of our family. They are we spend more time with people that we work with than we do with our own families.
Is there any like things that you guys do for connection with? Are they all within the town? Like, or do you have some employees that are like on the outskirts, like farms that are?
We have some employees that are on the outskirts, and look, this is probably one of the more challenging things in today's world. I mean, we're not unlike anyone else. I mean, I have employees that are remote. I have employees that work some in the office, some outside the office, and then I have some employees that that's not an option. Like they actually have to be there every single day, and we need them to be
Producing,
there
right?
producing and those kind of things. We do events. We have, things that we do as far as like feeding employees or trying to come around the table. I'll tell you, because you asked the question about my father and his culture, but my father grew up in a town very close to ours called in West Carroll Parish. So it's a different parish though, right? And the family table was always extremely important and still is extremely important in that town. So there's not a lot to do, right? But there's definitely this extension of the neighborhood where people would invite people over, especially for Sunday dinner. And this idea that you kind of have this expansive family, not just a biological family, but of like friends and, like, again, your neighbors down the street, or maybe someone that just didn't, have somewhere to go that day.
Oh, that's
And
awesome. I love
yeah,
that.
and so he really started that initiative. We actually had a cook for many years. Her name was Miss Rosie. She was phenomenal, and she would cook lunch for the staff, and we would all sit around this table in our little office and eat lunch together, right? And not all the employees participated because again, we have people that are on the outside and whatnot.
Right.
But
I mean, how many people is this that?
she was probably feeding 30 people, maybe 40,
That's
right? So
awesome.
pretty awesome, especially because it's not like a formal cafeteria. Some large companies have, right, these cafeterias, but it allowed us to sit together and get to know each other differently. And that's where connection really matters, right? When you see the human behind people, like actually, like they're not mad at me. Like they just had something happen last night, right? They had a bad day, or maybe this is a bad morning, or maybe their dog died. I mean, something might have happened that you don't know. And so seeing the human behind people, I think is extremely important.
So important. I love that. I love creating community around a table. There's no substitute for that. I think that's hugely important. So, what do you see for the future of your company?
What do I see for the future of my company? Wow. So, what I would love to see is more people connecting in just the way we were talking about, right? And so I feel like rice is just kind of the beginning of that. So we have very high sense of pride that, we're putting food on someone's table. So we want to make sure it's the best of the best that we can provide so people can feel like, oh, wow, like I created something beautiful for them. But what we really want to do, and what we think at least, is that we're in their house. Like when someone has to cook our product, we're in a way an extension. So we're there with them, right? And, at the end of the day, it's about sharing with each other, either through a hot meal or through, an extension of love in a way, right? And so my goal, yes, I mean, I want to be in more households, but it's really bigger than that. I really want to help families connect with each other. So, if at the end of the day, if I allow, people to gather around and, maybe it's not the traditional family table that we grew up with, right? Maybe it's, an ad hoc kind of after school, got to grab something. But if I can make mom's life easier or dad's life easier, actually, and then they, in extension, provide kind of, again, that connective kind of nature. I don't know. I believe passionately that the food industry has that ability.
Almost their responsibility.
It is. It is. We connect people and we connect people's lives. And so if we can do that better, then, well, sky's the limit.
You are a visionary lady, because that was a very visionary answer. It has nothing to do with the rice.
I tell people all the time, it has nothing to do with the rice. It's a platform. And it's really about the people that, yes, the people that use our products, of course, right? And about making their lives easier and better and all those things. But
The livelihoods of those that we touch.
That's right.
And all the people that we touch. I totally agree. What's the difference, and being pushed, like, this is your legacy, not your father's? Like, describe the difference between the two of you. And like, what was your aha of this is my legacy now,
So, my father was just trying to make it. He is absolutely first generation, pulled himself up from the ground. He's the American dream, right? And he has given me a platform that I am, have a responsibility to now, honestly. And so I don't take that lightly. But, in a way, he was setting the stage for something that could be much bigger than that, right? And so, I hope that at the end, again, that my legacy is about connecting people, that people say that she made my life a little bit better, right? And she brought joy to my life. And to me, that is a profound thing and maybe a bit ambitious in a way, right? So
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's totally, you're doing it already.
Well, it is something that you have to own on your own. You have to say to yourself, okay, like if this is the mission um, that I feel very compelled, this is the life I feel compelled to lead, then, I've got to portray that in all ways. And it's not easy, right? I mean, family business is dynamic and challenging and
Complex,
complex and
insane.
insane and all those things and even you're trying to juggle. I have 3 children and a husband and all these other, like we talked about, extra stuff that somehow I've clogged my life with. But at the end of the day, I think that it's so important to think about, okay, how can we connect with other people? How can we connect families? How can we leave this world a better place, right? And so that's what we say, connecting families, leaving the world a better place, one little grain at a time.
That's beautiful. I love that. And I think it's good for your children to see you happy. I always try to believe that with mine too. I think as much as we have mother guilt from time to time, especially when they're age of Birdie Rose.
Everyone has mother guilt.
It's just a thing. But now when they get older, you look back and I think they want to see you thriving. I think that all our kids want to see us thriving. So if we're happy, they're happy. Well, this has been a pleasure, Meryl.
The pleasure is truly mine. Thank you. Thank you for hosting this.
Meryl is so inspiring. She's as cute as a button with Southern charm, but she's also confident and incredibly driven. Her journey is proof that owning your legacy means stepping up, taking risks, and staying true to your roots. If today's conversation inspired you, connect with Meryl on LinkedIn and explore the incredible work she's doing at foursistersrice.com. And as always, thank you for joining us on Owning Your Legacy. Make sure to subscribe for more incredible conversations about leadership, impact, and building a legacy that lasts.